It's 7:30 and I already have to take my hawk break. Ugh.
I'm tired of you all. Caw-caw.
Hello, welcome to the Tabletop Travel Guide, the podcast where we explore fictional worlds and civilizations right from the comfort of our own table. I'm Ryan, and this week I had my baby in my house.
Wait, what?
Yes, I had a baby, so...
Okay, sorry, when you said that, I'm like, Jess was at the hospital, not in the...
No. The baby...
I'm like, I don't remember it being in your house.
My human child, human ancestry... was in the same room as my Pathfinder session this week, and that was my big thing, and I wasn't sure how well it was going to go, and it went pretty okay.
That's fair. Dang, we shouldn't have let you go first.
None
I'm Tyler.
of us are topping a human baby.
Had a baby. So I'm Tyler. This week, my players got in a fight with a ghost librarian. They tried to go in, she said, to start scribing stuff, and they just left the room and she got angry. So they just spent several rounds failing at trying to figure out what the heck this ghost was.
You've had a couple weeks of ghost issues.
Yeah, like different campaigns too. They just kind of keep coming around.
Huh.
But yeah, one of my players asked me to shout out his character for today in honor of our topic. So shout out to you, Connor and Asu.
That's so rude. This is my topic.
I know.
And you are just circumventing everything.
Do you want
Maybe I wanted to talk about him.
Do you want to talk about him?
I don't know, Tyler. No, I won't. Hello, I'm Sam. And in campaigns this week, in one, all of my combat rolls were terrible, so that was bad. And then in the other campaign, I worked to prevent the rest of my party from murder hoboing everything everywhere and tried to think with tactics.
Love me a murder hobo.
That's how it always ends up.
All right, so I was attacked by my podcast host because I am incapable of pronouncing things properly.
It's not everything improperly, but just this one thing that you cannot pronounce.
For our segment of things we mispronounced, specifically me, the gold dragon Menkare,
Yay.
and I have in the notes to pronounce it 5 times. Menkare, 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 Menkare. He's a gold dragon. He's a nice person.
Yeah.
Allegedly.
Yeah. Last week we talked about that because, I think you even had it in your notes.
Literally have it in my notes to pronounce it properly, and I didn't do that.
Yeah. I made sure to put that on here. I got called out last week when I was talking about Roger Loreforge. After that episode aired, I got dragged by one of my best friends, thanks Keisha, who was a journalism major and was very offended that we used the term war correspondent for somebody who was actively participating.
Okay.
Because she said it would be a compromise of judgment and ethics to be a war correspondent and also an adventuring murder hobo party, which, fair, I guess. So
Okay.
I apologize to any journalism major I may have offended with Roger Loreforge. He will do better.
I just imagine that of ethical issues, that's really not the worst we're gonna come up with.
I guess he'll just have to be relegated to the opinion pieces or Medium articles and write op-eds that no one really figures are unbiased.
Well, it's infotainment. It's not actually journalism. It's infotainment.
Oh, he's just an Instagram influencer.
Oh, poor Roger. Yeah, so I think that's everything we had for the things we mispronounced or misused. So this is kind of, if you look at our map of Pathfinder 2, it's kind of segmented into different meta areas. And so today we're talking about the final grouping of the Shining Kingdoms, which is Kyonin. And Sam is going to be our lovely host for today.
Yes, we are going to talk about Kyonin, full of things I don't really know how to pronounce. So I'm just saying at the top, I made up a lot of this.
Is it going to be worse than Dwarven pronunciation?
Well, maybe not. I mean, the words make sense in my brain, but as someone who had to do remedial reading in elementary school, my brain might not be the same as everybody else's brain.
Okay.
So we'll have a great time. It'll be fine. So we are headed to Kyonin, today. So geographically, Kyonin is going to be to the north of the Five Kings Mountains. It also has a border on Lake Carthen and also has another border on Andoran. So it's in the middle of a lot of things. Kyonin, I want you to picture with me a untouched country of nature. So we're thinking like rolling fields, we're thinking vibrant forests. It's beautiful. It's also very deadly because nature.
That's
Have
fair.
you been outside? It's terrifying.
Yeah, of
The
course it is.
Australia of Avestan.
Maybe not like quite as like, well, all right,
Not quite
maybe.
as
It might
deadly
be
as the
Australia.
koalas of Australia.
So Kyonin is for the most part, isolationist country of the elves. So as elves are our major race here, we're just going to talk about what elves look like in Pathfinder for a minute, because they're a little bit different than like high fantasy elves. And then there's some cool things about them that like really play into their history and where they're from. The things that are the same for our Pathfinder elves, we have tall, lean, physically beautiful humanoids, pointed ears, so they get to keep that. Typically, they are fair-skinned. Their eyes are green, gold, blue, or violet. But they do have different ethnicities in there as well. So different parts of the world might present a little bit differently based on their ethnicity. We also have like a couple of subsets of elves that their environment has impacted their physical features and changed what they look like. So that would be aquatic elves. That would be the drow, which we're going to talk about a little bit later. There's some variation in there from like your typical. The big pull apart from like our high fantasy presentation of elves is going to be their eyes. So if you see in depictions of elves, their eyes are going to be mostly iris and pupil, and you're going to hardly see any white, which mechanically I really love how Paizo has presented this, because they take the scientific biological approach where like the larger pupil allows more light in, which is why elves have better vision.
Oh, okay.
Rather than just being like, they're beautiful and they're better than you with everything, including their senses.
So my picture of Orlando Bloom, but like with bigger pupils.
Imagine, because I think it's what Mantis and Guardians of the Galaxy, that her
Yes.
eyes are completely black.
Okay.
Like that's what it looks like.
Okay.
Yes. So put those eyeballs on Orlando Bloom and you're pretty close.
Yes. All right.
The other thing to just note for them is they're physically more frail than humans. While we, have all these other cool things, we're going to have some weaknesses in there too. So they're just going to suffer worse from things like disease, poison, critical blows.
Critical hits.
They try to make up for it with magical items and things, but that is a weakness for them in the world. They still are living for a very long time, so typically it's like hundreds, possibly thousands of years natural lifespan.
Oh, wow.
But they still can be mortally killed. So
Yeah.
you're probably more likely to die from being stabbed than from old age.
Okay.
I guess
If you're
depending
an
on
adventurer.
depending on what
Thousands is
you're
a
doing.
long time. It's a long time.
Are they like, is it like lobsters where like theoretically thousands?
Wait, what?
So lobsters
I'm
are
sorry, do
technically...
lobsters live for thousands of years?
No.
I'm learning so much. Wait, hold on.
Lobsters are theoretically immortal, but they like grow too big and then they just kind of like collapse on themselves.
Hey
and they
guys,
die.
welcome to the Lobster Cast.
this is fun
It's a real
facts about
thing?
lobsters. Yeah.
All right,
Oh.
well, I really
Okay.
love the idea of a theoretically immortal lobster. That's way cooler than anything I was going to talk about.
Sorry, this has been Tabletop Lobster Cast with Tyler.
All right.
Can carry on.
I have no words. So, theoretically thousands. I think typically we're counting elven lifespans in the hundreds.
Okay,
like,
that's fair.
you might hit
Yeah.
1,000. More than 1,000, I think, is maybe significantly less likely.
It's an outlier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we'll kind of talk about some of the things that are kind of impacting elven lifespans as we go
Okay.
through this.
Okay.
They do have their own language. They have Elven as a language, but most of them are speaking Common or Taldan as existing in Golarion because that's helpful. One of the really fun things about kind of Elven culture that I learned while reading and did not know this before, they have something called the Brightness, which is essentially like an Elven enlightenment journey where they are in search of whatever that semi-divine inspiration for their life is, some epiphany that they will have. That journey can manifest physically, like they can be traveling, trying to find whatever the brightness is, or it can be more of an intrinsic, introspective kind of journey as well. But that's part of they believe that if they find that, then that will help in their reincarnation into a higher life form.
Oh,
later.
Okay.
So, that's fun.
Okay.
And then, because we cannot escape me talking about anything without talking about deities, I am going to briefly mention that the elves have their own pantheon of deities that are specifically just for their race. So there's a few that we might encounter today. And then a few that I'm just going to say who they are just because I want to roast myself next week for mispronouncing them. So just a couple of those deities that are popular. We've got Pindaladlara, the goddess of art and architecture. I will not be saying that again. Ketaphis, the god of the hunt, and Uelral, the wise, goddess of crafting and magic. And then we have Alceta, who we are going to talk about a little bit today. She's the goddess of doorways and portals and is technically a Taldan deity, but she's going to be important to the elves for reasons we will talk about later.
That's a very specific coverage of your domains, doorways and portals.
Well, but if you think of it, it's also very necessary. How many times do you walk through a door every day?
It's true.
Yeah.
If that lady decided to stop working, smack.
All doors cease to work.
Alceta took a day off. He immediately just smack into the door. All doors jam.
Well, I guess I'm throwing
stuck
rocks
in
through my
every
windows.
room.
Counts as a portal.
Dang it.
She's very important. So that's our general overview of who the elves are in this world.
It's just cool to see how they're kind of different than think just elves are a monolith in fantasy worlds. And I feel like Paizo kind of took a different route with it, which I thought it was pretty cool. Still had a lot of the same trademarks, but
yeah, their own spin.
Yeah.
So speaking of kind of their own spin in ways that it's a little bit different, so we are in Kyonin, which is the ancestral homeland of the elves. Now, because elves are so many hundreds or thousands of years old, their history is ginormous. So much so that they don't really count it. Because, if you are alive for several hundred years and doing the same thing, it's not maybe really important to you how much time has passed.
Sure.
So we're going to talk about just a couple of big things in the history that impact where Kyonin is now. But where we are starting in the decline of their civilization. So their civilization has peaked in ancient history of Golarion, yes. So we are going to enter Kyonin in negative 5293.
Oh, so 12,000 years ago.
Yes, lots of thousands of years ago. And this is the decline of that civilization we've kind of started in this time frame. Leading up to this time in this year, elves have been a dominant race on Golarion. And then in the lead up to this event, there's a few things that are starting to happen in Golarion that are going to push along that downfall. We've got a rise in humans, so they're just more numerous because they have a higher birth rate.
Sure,
so elves do birth children, but it's really rare and doesn't happen very often. So the humans are like bunny rabbits, right? They're just, they're everywhere.
Right.
Yeah.
There's also in the world developing, there's just more beasties, there's more baddies. There's a lot of things that are kind of wearing on what the civilization was that the elves had built.
It's getting busy on Golarion.
Yeah.
It is. Yeah. It is. So they were once top dog, not quite. And then in negative 5293, we have Earthfall.
Our old friend, the meteor.
It's like it impacts a lot of people.
I
don't know why. Well.
Is that an impact pun?
What?
Sorry, you said it impacts a lot of people.
Oh, I didn't even realize I made a pun. But actually, Ryan, the elves do escape Earthfall. So the elves know this is coming. There's some prophecies. They are aware that Earthfall is going to happen. And their response to it is, well, we are going to get out of here then.
Peace.
So they start taking big steps to save their race of elves on Golarion. Their goal is to get everybody to Sovirion, which is the ancestral home of the elves located somewhere else.
Okay.
So to do this, they construct magical elf gates, and elf gates is like the crude, non-elven term, but it's easier to say. The elven term for this, which could not find a pronunciation guide for, so making it up, is Ayudara.
Okay, that
They-
seems right. Yeah.
Sounds right.
Sure.
Sounds
So
elven.
they construct these all over the continent to get all of the elves on Golarion into the capital in Kyonin, which is a city named Ayadara. And then once everybody is in Kyonin, there is a portal there that will take them all to Sovirian. This portal is able to be used because of the Sovirian stone, which if you look up Kyonin and what their symbol is, it's a giant crystal. And this is the Sovirian stone.
Okay.
So it's a giant crystal, which the elves use to control this ancient portal that links Golarion with the elven land of Sovirian.
So they're not native to Golarion.
No.
Oh.
But there's not much that we know about Sovirian, and honestly, there's not much that the elves actually know about it either. Spoiler, Sovirian is on a different planet.
Ooh.
Oh.
But the elves don't really know that, and the rest of the world doesn't really know that either. It's like, is it a continent? Is it a different plane?
Right.
Yeah.
Is it a wormhole in a shoebox? Like, people don't really know what it is. They just know that that's where the elves theoretically came from and where
Right.
they returned to.
I guess in a world and universe where there's just planes of everything and they're different places, I guess it could make sense. You're like, I'm on a different plane of existence and not understand like how planets work.
Right.
Yeah. So that's where they're going. The stone that we're using to get there also provides all the power for the elf gates. To use an elf gate, you need a key. But theoretically, like, whole armies can be moved across the globe with elf gates, which is how they're able to get large groups of elves back to the capital to then be able to go through the portal.
Okay.
The stone is still well known in Kyonin, but it's also very hidden in the capital. Few people have ever seen it in recent history because the last time it was used was, we'll get there, but in this particular situation, there's a legend that a mythical elven hero created the stone and the elf gates. His name is Golarion the Sculptor.
Ooh.
Candelaron.
So he helped build all of these gates that allow the elves passage. This is where Alceta shows up. So she is our goddess of doorways and portals and
Right.
Mhm.
Okay.
thresholds. Elven followers of her see it as their mission to protect those elf gates and uphold them, which is why they've kind of like adopted her into the elven pantheon, even if technically that's not where she was.
Protectors of the doors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
And all of those gates still, well, maybe not all, but a lot of those gates still exist in Golarion today. Several adventure paths, you might encounter them when you're in them, but their locations are all over the continent, so theoretically could still be used if people have the keys.
Nice. Oh, so each gate needs a key, or okay.
Yes, you cannot just pop into somewhere and then pop over somewhere else. You need the secret password, or in this case, the key.
The
Okay.
gate key. Cool.
We have a lot of a civilization that just popped through a portal that took them to another place, which we know is another planet, but they are effectively off-world. Except not all the elves went through the portal. So some of them did stay behind. The ones who stayed in Kyonin stayed in the capital of Ayadara to protect the city. It's shrouded in illusory magic, so they're able to kind of keep that one place safe and not let it fall to ruin. They didn't have enough people stay behind to protect the rest of the country, so the rest of the cities and the settlements really start to just like fall under the control of bandits and vandals during the Age of Darkness. So it's really kind of sad, because then that's really where we're seeing the civilization really tank.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're like all gone.
Yeah, they only have that one stronghold, so the
Yeah.
rest of it all slowly starts to become ruins. So that's one group that stays in Kyonin. We also see elves that are known as the Forlorn. So these are elves that end up growing up among other races with shorter lifespans, which is kind of sad, because it's like, all my friends are dying.
Aw.
Yeah, so they're like, they've experienced more loss, and there's, you know, some more moroseness to that group of elves. The other group that we kind of see here is the Drow. So these are elves that stayed on Golarion but went underground for Earthfall. So what happens to them is they're going to end up corrupted by some of the evils underground, and over time this physically changes their appearance. So they end up with very dark skin and white hair. They kind of like take on that like no sun or underground appeararance.
So kind of like the Duergar from...
They like pass the dwarves on the way down. Like, see you guys, we're staying.
They end up like kind of like dominating those like underworld races. Yeah. So most people leave. A small group stays. Kyonin just kind of has this one city where there's a few elves hanging out, but the rest of it is just kind of slowly decaying. And
I'd note too that, you know, we're talking about the Kyonin elves in Avestan, and I know in like the first episode we kind of teased some of the Mwangi elves. So I think, you know, it's relevant to point out that we're talking specifically about the Avestan Kyonin elves. There are elves that have done other things in other parts of the world too. But this isn't like the elf episode, just Kyonin.
Yes, the giant group of elves, though. I mean, it's pretty substantial, and like when you look at like the other like ethnical groups around the world, I think the Kyonin elves are still like the majority of elves on Golarion.
Okay.
And they stay gone until 2497 AD. So we are at like 7,000 years later.
Yeah.
Oh wow. Okay. Yep.
So they're just like, goodbye. 7 lifetimes for them.
Extended retreat.
Yes. Bye. In 2497, we are going to talk about what the new threat is in Kyonin, and that is Tree Raiser.
Ooh.
Tree Raiser.
Lord of the Blasted Tarn.
Oh.
He's a demon.
Oh, okay.
And he is cast out of the abyss by his master, wanders the material plane until he makes his home in the Firani Forest, which is the forest that covers most of Kyonin.
Okay.
Ooh.
So he's a demon lord. He's rolling around. He's like, these trees look great. I think I'll hang out.
Okay.
Because he is a demon and evil and all sorts of fun stuff, under his influence, the forest starts to become dark and twisted. The earth is poisoned. Living things become twisted versions of themselves. It's not great.
So his presence is like literally poisoning the forest.
Yes.
Not great.
Have you seen Fern Gully?
Cool. Yeah. Okay. Cool.
He is the evil tree oil sap thing in Fern Gully.
Cool. Okay.
Yes, basically we can just think of Kyonin as Fern Gully.
Okay.
We got things, we got cool stuff, and then, ooh, bad.
And I take it the elves are not going to like their forest being poisoned?
So that is not the thing that brings them back.
Oh, okay.
The problem is that Tree Raiser finds out about the Severian Stone.
Ooh.
And he wants it.
Okay.
Because he wants to use it to bring a demon horde to Golarion.
I was going to ask this, like if this is a magic, like a super powerful magical artifact, have people tried to come after it? Okay.
Yep,
okay.
Yep. Because he wants to use that giant portal to portal in a giant army of demons.
Sure.
It's
Checks out.
either so that he can get revenge or maybe so that he can win back the favor of his master. Maybe both. There's like, you know, some debate on what exactly the goal was for that. But it tries to go after the stone. So that is what alerts the elves.
Okay.
And they're like, oh, that's bad. They're like, well, I guess we'll go take care of this. So a procession of elven scouts, warriors, spellcasters all come back through the portal. They provide reinforcements to the elves that are still in Ayadara.
Okay.
They restore the forest, and they drive Tree Raiser back into the southern swamps of the Firani Forest. They don't totally, like, eradicate him. He's still there, but they confine him to a much smaller area in the forest. So then they're all, like, back, right? And they're like, oh, well, I guess things are like okay here now. We've been through a few ages. Things have maybe calmed down a little bit. So they kind of take that news back, and then the elves come back to Kyonin. Now you're coming back to a country that has been really not inhabited for 7,000 years.
Yeah.
So they aren't really looking at like retaking their old territories. They're not trying to like uproot the people that are like living there that are, you know, not evil demon lords.
Sure.
So it's really centered in Kyonin that they stay. They're not I mean, obviously small groups might move around, but they're not trying to like wage war on the other countries.
Yeah,
no,
they're not exploring.
They're not. But their civilization is just smaller and it's a little bit more contained.
Yeah.
And they're staying in Kyonin, which is what's going to influence this isolationist policy that we have currently. This is where the elves are today in Kyonin. They have stayed. Time moves very slowly for them. So how Kyonin is structured now, we have that Ferrani forest. That's our big ancient forest that's full of stuff. It's got some ruins. That's a big chunk of the country. That southern part of the forest where Tree Razor was relegated to is called the Tanglebriar, and that still exists, and it's still kind of a nasty place down there in the southern part of the country. So they've kind of like
cleaned up most of Kyonin, and now he's just kind of his own.
Yep, he's just got his own little swampy area that he has to
swamp
hang out.
Hey, kids, we don't go in that part of the forest.
Don't go to the Tanglebriar.
Unless you're like, I don't know, really looking to take down some monsters. If that's your jam, that'd be like a good place to hang out. But
yeah, it'd be a good high level like epic campaign. Taking down Tree
Or like
Razor.
if you were like, what was it called? Like the enlightenment, the light, the enlightenment
the
journey,
brightness.
the brightness. Like if you're like looking for your brightness, like we're gonna go to the Tanglebriar. We're gonna go find some trouble in the Tanglebriar.
We're gonna have a challenging brightness quest.
Imagine you're like, Dad, I found my brightness, and they're like, Johnny, don't do that. Have you thought of a different brightness? Like,
maybe not that one.
Maybe how about baking? Have you thought about baking as your brightness?
Have you tried to achieve enlightenment through cookies?
Have you had bread, son?
You can toast it. So then we have, Ayadara is still the capital of Kyonin. It's called the City of Spires. Non-elves can only enter this city by invitation. Okay. You have got to be with somebody else to be in this city if you are not an elf. This is also the seat of the queen, Queen Talandia.
Talandia.
She is the bearer of the Viridian crown, which, fun fact, the Viridian crown is what rulers of Kyonin have worn historically. It's a living artifact.
Ooh.
The crown grows and prunes based on like what the political situation is. So like in a time of war, the crown might like grow into a helm.
That's so cool.
I know. Or in like times of peace, it might just look like a tiara or something smaller and more contained.
Oh, that's so cool.
That would be awesome.
It's very neat. So the queen rules absolutely. She does have a council of advisors, but it is... We are not a democracy here in Kyonin. Fun fact, though, the queen right now is a little bit progressive and is currently trying to lead the country to be a little bit less isolationist. So she values trade and interacting with the other races of Golarion a little bit more than historically they have. Fun fact about her also, she has a hawk form and a hawk familiar.
Ooh.
Oh, so she can like hang out with her familiar.
Yes.
That's awesome.
Yes. So in what I read, she gets 30 minutes a day that she transforms into a hawk and flies around with her familiar.
Aww.
I'm going for a flight.
Yes. I am tired of politics. I have to fly around now. Thank you.
I hope it's not a set 30 minutes any day and it's just she can invoke that 30 minutes at any point. One of our advisors comes, she's like, I'm invoking 30 hawk time.
It's 7:30 and I already have to take my hawk break. Ugh.
I'm tired of you all. Caw-caw.
I'm in for this queen. This is awesome.
I like it.
And she's also very magical and, and things like that.
I think I've seen pictures and she has because we talked about the eyes, doesn't she have like pink kind of magenta very like cool looking eyes?
Huh.
Maybe we'll throw a picture on the
we can throw a picture up there.
Picture on the website.
There's some very cool artist renderings of what she looks like. The other two places in Kyonin that I want to talk about that I think are interesting. So we have another city called Green Gold. This is a trade city, and it's the only point of entry for non-elves. And it's actually run by humans.
Wait, to Kyonin?
Mm-hmm.
So that sounds like a very human name for a city.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's if you are not an elf and you would like to come into Kyonin, you have to go through Green Gold.
Okay. Oh, wow. Okay.
And it's so the humans run this city and trade, and this is where we hit that divide between isolationist Kyonin and maybe more progressive Kyonin. Green Gold is the only legal market for elven magic and goods that are manufactured in Kyonin because we had this kind of tumultuous history with people raiding and looting things that were left behind in Kyonin.
Taldor.
It's seen as a really big offense to some Kyonin elves if you are buying or selling elven goods elsewhere.
Okay.
Or if you have acquired them and are using them or selling them in other places.
Sure.
But in green gold, obviously things that are manufactured in Kyonin, they are offering for sale. So it's the only stable legal way to do that as seen by the Kyonin elves.
Man, so you could because they have, elven type weapons that you can, mechanically have your character have, like an elven curve blade or whatever. So technically if your character's like, oh yeah, I bought this in Taldor or Absalom, and they're like, oh, so you're an illegal
so you're an arms dealer.
Yeah. Huh.
Well, it depends, if it was manufactured in Kyonin or not.
Sure.
Because again,
because
we have...
you can have an elf blacksmith outside of that.
Yes.
Okay, that's right.
Yeah, so it's if it's Kyonin wares.
Fair.
Okay.
You would be looked down upon if you bought Kyonin things from somewhere else.
So is the rest of the country shoot on sight then? If I accidentally to cross the border?
So I feel like you wouldn't really be able to accidentally get into Kyonin because of the forest.
Okay.
So there's some of those kind of natural barriers.
Yeah.
And then because they're big cities, so Ayadara is shrouded in magic, so you just can't find it.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So it's less about the borders of the country and more about the places of civilization that we have.
Okay.
You either are going to green gold, which is open, or you need an elf to get you into.
Okay, that makes sense.
The other fun thing about green gold is it is illegal to fell a tree in green gold. So there are just random trees in random places because you're not allowed to cut them down.
You walk out one day and right in front of your front door, a tree starts going. You're like,
dang it, crap.
Right? I just think that'd be hilarious. But I just love that little fun fact. And all of the roofs are yellow.
Huh. There you go.
It's also currently run...
Oh, green gold. Trees and gold. Okay, yeah. I got it.
Hey.
One plus one is two. I got
connection!
it. The gears are moving.
That literally didn't click for me. So yeah, thank you.
We're getting it.
And it's currently run by a merchant mayor who is human and originally Taldan.
Okay.
Oh.
So that is, a place that you could go if you are not an elf. The other fun city is Omesta, which is a gnomish city. So while the elves were off in a different place for 7,000 years, the gnomes took up residence in the tree above this elven city. And since the elves returned, they've kind of let the gnomes just hang out and stay. They're not, and the gnomes are like, well, we're not in your city, we're above your city. And the elves are like, all right, whatever, you guys are chill.
You are technically correct. The best kind of correct.
So there's this whole city of gnomes that lives in the treetops, and everything moves around on ropes and winches and movement in the trees, which also sounds like a really cool mechanic.
Nice.
Oh, and so I guess it's probably outside of the elves' magic to hide the main cities. So if you came up to that, you would probably see the gnomes.
Yeah, so they only hide Ayadara. That's the capital.
Yeah, okay.
And then the smaller civilizations and cities, I don't think are hidden in quite the same manner.
Huh. That's really cool.
So yeah, those are fun places to go.
The elves
in Kyonin.
seem very chill, all things considered.
So they're really not they're isolationist, but they're not aggressively against other races.
Yeah.
It's more just how do we preserve what we have? And also they just move very slowly on the realm of progress.
Yeah, they're not xenophobic. They're just a little protective of their own.
Yeah, if you live to be, 900, you don't have to be I can finish this project in 2 decades.
Yes. That is the other problem.
Your summer project might last for a while.
That's fair, yeah.
So that's not to say that elves don't adventure, because they do, and they get things done in a timely manner, but as a civilization,
right,
they're just moving a little slower.
There you go.
Nice.
So that's Kyonin. Because time moves slowly there's not tons of history to wade through. We just have those kind of big things that have shaped just what it looks like currently.
Well, it seems like just a pretty cool, peaceful place for elves.
Yeah, they do well with Andoran with trade. They're not as into Resmirin, who's on one of their other borders.
Oh man,
who is on Resmirin's side? No one.
But they're not overtly fighting anyone.
Yeah.
They're fairly chill with the dwarves because the dwarves have also been around nearly as long as they have. And again, if there's no outward aggression towards them, they're not really trying to aggress past their borders.
I love because you have this stereotype, I think, in fantasy that dwarves hate elves. I remember, and especially in here, because it says, you know, the elves and the dwarves mostly just like gossip about humans when they talk.
Yeah.
They're like, those weirdos. But just like the idea, I saw something that somebody posted, like, yeah, it doesn't, elves are like in the trees, dwarves are underground. Like they literally have no reason to fight.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. They literally, yeah.
Yeah. So it's just kind of cool that you're like, oh yeah, you don't have that preconceived like, oh, there's an elf. I'm a dwarf. I hate that elf. It's like, oh yeah, hey look, there's an elf friend, kind of.
At least a neighbor.
Yeah, a neighbor. Guy you wave at while you're mowing the lawn, like, hey.
Swinging through trees.
Cool.
On that note, we will break for a note from our sponsors, and then we will be back with campaigns and characters.
Love it.
To promote safe passage and ward your door against unwelcome entry and your threshold against nefarious visitors, use Alcetta's door charms. The charms are made in the heart of Kyonin and blessed by the clerics of Alcetta, and can be worn to guide the wearer through journeys and more metaphorical transitions. Sold only in green gold, come see us at Alcetta's door charms today.
Hey, welcome back to Tabletop Travel Guide, and thank you to our sponsors. It is now campaign time.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. One of the things that we do that I feel like in all the campaigns we've run and been a part of together, we usually don't care about the survival aspects of campaigns.
Yes.
I always care that I survive. I do not want to die, Tyler.
Fair. In the generic form of survival, yes, we do care about that. But when we started playing in 3.5, the rules for that were kind of a mess. You had a carrying capacity by weight. You had very random...
Way too much work to track those things in 3.5.
So when we were in that version, we just kind of never really bothered with it. We didn't really care much about spell components. It just kind of like, we're playing to have fun. It's fine. And I think that kind of carried over. Even though Pathfinder 2 very much like simplified a lot of this, we still just kind of gloss over a lot of...
As long as you're not carrying... I don't know, my rule has always been like, as long as you're not carrying like 15 suits of full plate armor, it's probably fine.
You're like, whatever. Like,
I always get the adventurers pack. Everyone's like, I don't know if anyone has a bedroll. I always have a bedroll.
The number of times I actually have pulled stuff out of the adventurers pack, like, oh, here's my 20 foot of rope. Actually useful, though.
That's true.
At any level.
Yeah. For my campaign, I wanted to do a kind of really lean into those mechanics. You know, the extreme environment mechanics, the kind of bulk mechanics, like carrying capacity, being able to craft and do all that stuff. And I wanted to turn this into a hex crawl. What a hex crawl is basically kind of like a way to handle overland travel across days, where you have like different hexes on a map, and like as you travel from one hex to another, it takes a certain amount of time. There might be events in those hexes, whatever. Ryan, we'll see how good your character fits into this, because this is a historical campaign.
Ooh.
This is going to be following the group of elves who come back originally to Kyonin after the 7,000 years of being on Silverian.
The original group of scouts, or the original group post we've knocked back Tree Raiser?
The scouts.
The scouts. Okay.
Yeah. So this would be part of the scouting party of like, we're coming back. We're not totally sure what to expect.
Okay.
And so I kind of want to play it like you warp in from the gate, and then you're trying to get your bearings of like, what is happening? You know that Tree Raiser, or this like entity, is trying to take the Silverian stone. But other than that, there's like 7,000 years of stuff that you don't know about. I imagine the goal would be, you know, you'd have your map, and like your goal would be kind of explore around Kyonin as you're going. And maybe, I'm not sure the amount of elves who had to come through to take care of Tree Raiser, but you, depending on what level you wanted this campaign, it might be a lower level. So you're like, we'll go take care of Tree Raiser. You just go scout the rest and come back.
Sure.
So I think it'd be cool to just, you know, you'd really have that, okay, you have some amount of supplies. Those supplies probably run out. You have to forage. You have to fight some monsters. You have to deal with Taldans that showed up.
Yeah.
So you're kind of exploring the map, and things are happening. And it's just kind of like, it might not be a huge, long adventure, but you're kind of getting that survival of what happens as a group of people who have come back to their land after, 7,000 years to see, like, just try to figure out what's happening.
And none of those people were probably in the land originally.
Yeah.
7,000 would probably be
too long
for one lifetime. So these are probably people that have also like just heard stories about Kyonin. So you're going off of like playing telephone for 7,000 years on what's supposed to be there.
There's so much potential there to just like play, like you said, play telephone and like give the players like, we think there's this massive creature right outside the portal. And
well, I also like the idea. So without giving any spoiler adventure, but we're running an adventure path that at one point you're basically trying to avoid a large monster that you cannot fight. And so you're not at a point where you're like, we're going to go fight this monster. It's like everything is a hazard and a natural disaster that you're trying to avoid by this monster just existing.
Yeah.
And so I imagine, I don't know how big Tree Razor is, but that would be kind of cool. Like you run into a hex and you're like, oh, Tree Razor's here. We need to now survive and then get out of this hex.
Yeah. Like we cannot fight him.
You can't fight him. You need to go. And then based on what it's just doing by existing, you're like trying to survive. So,
oh, I love this.
Yeah. So I thought it would just be cool to kind of like lean into all these mechanics that we usually just gloss over and make them the kind of forefront of what this adventure is.
Man, I'm a big fan of random tables, and I would love to generate some random tables for encounters for these kinds of things.
Yes.
Tree Razor is a creature 25.
Yeah.
So...
yeah.
Okay, yeah.
A level 25 creature. I mean, even unless you wanted to play a level 20 adventuring party, you would basically be like, get out.
Yeah, that's at that point, Tree Razor is a force of nature that you just have to avoid. Yeah.
So hopefully, well, and I guess the only other caveat of this campaign is it would be elves only, obviously, because there'd be no humans chilling in. So
nope.
Like, I'm a dwarf. What? Yeah. So hopefully you picked an elf for us, Ryan.
Well, I did pick an elf,
okay.
But it doesn't. I'll see if I can make this work. So originally, my character.
I threw you a loop on the historical.
Fine. My character's name is Tyrael. She is a lawful evil elf supremacist.
Sure.
Cool.
So I originally had her backstory that she spent some time as like a domestic servant.
Yeah.
And like saw kind of like the bad ways of humanity more than she saw the good ways of humanity. Like she saw the ugly side. And like her formative experiences were all bad on humanity. So that when she finally had the chance to get out and escape, she was very anti-humanity and very pro-elf.
Yeah.
So I think I could take this two ways. You could take this as a, change that backstory a little bit. And when she came through on the party, she has her preconceived notions and her biases that like she's hyped up of, oh my gosh, I have been told stories of all these awful creatures and these things called humans and these things called orcs or whatever, whatever creatures they had experience with. And she has to kind of work to get through those preconceived notions. Or she is one of the forlorn. I like your idea of like the forlorn, where she's already kind of been around and she just happens to come back into the area as an NPC. And she just talks trash about everything else going on and like goads the party of like, oh, you guys are here doing God's work. Like you're taking back the wasteland from this awful Tree Razor and these awful humans, and just like is almost like their own personal party demon on the shoulder.
Like hype man for evil.
Yeah, like, oh, don't worry, just those gnomes that are hanging out, we should get rid of them too. Like, yeah, I know they're not doing anything wrong, but they're not elves. We should get rid of them. I think you go either way.
Yeah.
You could also have her, she could be part of the contingent in Ayadara that's been defending the country from, or, has seen the other cities crumbling and could definitely have built up some like revenge schema from that too.
Well, and then she's like very, very like beat down by the world and just like, oh, thank God you're here. Finally, my relief party is here. Let me tell you how to kill all the humans.
Yeah, I think you could go a bunch of different ways. But I do think, because I love the elves, like the original story for this character. And I feel like that kind of goes, this is kind of a situation where you can come to a really cool character backstory to the really wrong campaign for it. Right? Like, I feel like we've been in those where you're like, I build this backstory and like you just haven't talked to the DM before, and then it's like, yeah, that's not gonna work.
Or if your DM is just like, I don't care, it's like there's the whole party who's like come through the portal, and then she just like happened to be scouting through the area and sees a bunch of elves jump through the portal, and she like quickly like puts on armor and like sneaks in with the party.
I'm
It's
ready, guys.
I've been here the whole time, everyone.
GM's like, whatever, okay.
Exactly. GM, it's fine. It's whatever.
The rest of the party's like, we don't recognize you. You're like, oh yeah, I was with, over there. It's fine.
I've been here the whole time.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah, Tree Razor's a big bad person, right? Let's go
Yes.
kill Tree Razor. That's not what we're here to do. Whatever, man. I'm just here.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, I think it still works.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. We have talked Kyonin. We have talked gates. We have talked campaigns and characters. So now it comes time for the tabletop official score.
Ooh.
Sam, on a scale of 1 to 5 trees.
I mean, I'm a 5 tree. Like, I'd go. It seems really nice. Take some pictures. If I'm an elf, I think I would probably really like it. If I'm not an elf, I think I would go to the one trading city I'm allowed to go to
Yeah.
and, buy some knickknacks, walk around, see some trees. Sounds good to me.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go with 5 trees as well. I think I was a little worried coming into this episode that it was going to be a little more exclusionary, but this actually seems very nice and calm and pleasant.
Yeah, I agree. I think the worst case scenario as a human is like you're bored. Or you're just like, oh, I can't explore as much of Kyonin
Or
as I
like you're
wanted.
kindly asked to leave. Like, I feel like they just be like, sir, your time is up. Like, we would like you to please leave.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I think I'm 5 as well. 5 trees.
5.
Sounds great.
Straight 5s across the board, unanimous.
Yeah. Good job, Kyonin.
All right, well, we won't be back for a month because we are all going to Kyonin to see some trees.
We'll be back. We won't fell any trees. That would just be a bad day.
No, we're going to look at them.
Yeah.
We'll stare at the cool trees.
So, Tabletop Travel Guide official score, 5 out of 5 trees.
5 out of 5 trees.
I love it. Cool. Well, like always, thanks again to all our listeners. If you are enjoying what you're listening to, tell your friends. Or if you are interested in, giving us some feedback, send us an email at tabletoptravelguidepodcast@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. If you, want to check out our website at tabletoptravelguide.com, we'll post pictures of, interesting things we
The
talk
Queen.
about. The Queen. We'll put, the Tyrael up there.
Yep.
Yeah, anything we find interesting, feel free to check that out.
If you have better ideas on how to pronounce any of the things in today's episode, please let me know.
Yes, send us emails if you are offended by how we pronounce things. Sorry about that if we do. But yeah, until then, happy travels, guys.
Safe travels.